Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. I love David Mitchell.
If you watch
Audio fine. Naming your child, David Mitchell's Soapbox. Let's go. Hope everyone's doing your original link, top of the description. My name's Connor, if you're new, let's go. Soapbox.
If you watched the previous two of these with the diligent care which I request and require, you will be fully warned against the folly of trying to express your uniqueness either in your stag night or your wedding. Now we come to the big one. There may well come a time when you and your partner seek to launch a new type of person you have created. To do this, you'll be required to come up with a name for them. Unless you're a writer, a shipwright, or an IKEA furniture designer, you may well never have been required to name a thing before, bar the odd pet. It will seem like an enormous decision, and one to which you ought surely to bring a little of the creativity for which you are so admired amongst your friends. After all, you yourself are a wildly unique and special person, and so, to a lesser extent, is your partner. Naturally, you may think the result of a union between two such unusual or unique individuals requires an unusual or unique name, so that everyone they encounter will immediately understand the levels of one-of-a-kindness they're dealing with here.
I can't wait for the examples. Also, I love Basil. Love that name.
Will immediately understand the levels of one-of-a-kindness they're dealing with here. Time to ditch the solid workaday Toms and Sarahs and search instead the baby books, obscure apocryphal gospels, and local takeaway menus for something appropriately bespoke. Do not, under any circumstances, do this. For a start, names aren't fundamentally, and I know I'll get angry letters from branding experts on disgustingly over-designed writing paper for saying this, but still, they're not fundamentally very important. It's amazing what you can get used to in a name. For instance, I've personally never been that crazy about the name of the Channel 4 sitcom Peep Show. I mean, it's fine, but a peep show sounds a bit sexy, and taken along with the late-night slot on Channel 4, the first-time viewer would not be unreasonable to expect titillation, which seems to me writing a check with the title which the content of constant footage of two pallid men in their 30s aging in real time will emphatically fail to honour. Why not follow the example of Frasier or Fawlty Towers and call it the thing that's the main thing in it? In Peep Show's case, I suppose Mark and Jez, or The Two Men. But as I say, it doesn't really matter, because as soon as you get used to a name, you stop noticing it altogether, whether it be mildly misleading, like Peep Show, or wrenchingly clunky and awful, like Have I Got News for You, or Strictly Come Dancing. Ridiculous and off-putting the first few times you heard them, but now simply the name for that thing, as unremarkable as the 6 o'clock news or Gardener's World. But people, unlike TV shows,
Gardener's World? I'm pausing.
as the 6 o'clock news or Gardener's World. But people, unlike TV shows, are not simply unveiled once and then allowed to seep into the national consciousness. People have to introduce themselves again and again at every stage of their lives. All the more vital to suppress your understandable but ultimately vain and self-defeating desire to demonstrate the uniqueness of your child. Of course he or she is unique. Everyone's unique. But take a step back and that's as irrelevant a distinction as the one between snowflakes. The truly exceptional, the snowflake that's red, is in the eye of the beholder, and you don't convince anyone they've encountered it just by naming your child Sunshine or Space Vixen, or indeed Snowflake. It's bad enough for people with mildly unusual or connotation-laden names. Everyone has an idea of what a Tarquin is like, and that must be a millstone round the neck of all the Tarquins who aren't like that, and whose friends constantly have to explain he's called Tarquin, but he's actually quite a normal bloke. Whereas normal blokitude, or rather a certain pressure-relieving colourlessness, should surely be what parents are aiming for. To do otherwise seems arrogant, controlling, or just plain cruel. Why give or make up a name which will ensure everyone who first meets them will have strong preconceptions about them when there are so many names to choose from with little or no baggage? Except for all our own private irrational feelings that say Simon's a self-absorbed, Andrew's a short, or Lisa's a trouble. And picking such a name certainly doesn't mean your child is condemned to stolidity. After all, a Richard can always become a Ringo in later life, if he wishes. But then again, a John, Paul, or George can stick with their stolid, colourless names and not noticeably suffer from failing to be called Jongo, Pongo, or Jingo.
I wish he gave more references. This is a part 3 of 2 others, right? Wedding Soapbox. Is this the first next one? The names that, again, everyone's name. Like, my name's Connor, Connor. I don't mind Conor, which I think might be the oldest spelling of it. But when I see a Connor with a Conner, my skin crawls a little bit. And that's just a personal thing. Maybe I shouldn't do that. But what kind of, like, when people spell ordinary names but like switch out letters that sort of sound can be pronounced as another letter, I don't know. This was part 3. I would like to. This is weddings. Okay, let's do this.
Last time, I banged on about the arrogance of trying to make your stag night unique. But of course, this pales into insignificance in comparison to the lengths people go to persuade you that no one before them has ever really got married. In the old days, neither weddings nor the forerunners of stag nights were expected to be unique. In fact, the opposite. They were codified and set. Everyone who knew one another got married in due season at the same church, or at least one of the same 4 churches in the area, and beforehand every groom got drunk with his friends in one of the same 8 pubs. There was nothing special about the special day, in the sense of different from all the other special days, and that was quite right. It's supposed to be special for you, not special for everyone who attends. How could it possibly be? In some of the summers of your late 20s and early 30s, you go to weddings more weekends than you don't. Having a wedding in it practically guarantees the unspecialness of a day. You're more likely to reminisce. Do you remember Saturday the 12th of July 2006? No. Yes, you do. It was the weekend after Nick and Helen's wedding and before Jim and Rachel's wedding, when we had a bit of a lie-in and read the papers. Oh yes, that was a magical day. The problem is that these days couples more often than not pay for and therefore design their own celebrations. And this is bound to lead to trouble because, as with the stag night, they begin to see it as a test of their originality and by association a yardstick for the depth of their love. This has got to the point where couples write their own vows. Marriage is becoming an umbrella term for a wide range of random and mawkish undertakings which men and women now choose to make to each other in the presence of catering. Whereas what it should be, and in fact is, however novel the usher's buttonholes, is a collection of people gathered together to make a deeply improbable promise that little bit more likely to stick. Up until a
Deeply improbable promise.
couple of decades ago, of course, the bride's parents had to organise it. They paid for it, they chose the nature of the do, and if the happy couple themselves hated it, so what? Give it 20 years, and they'd have their chance to have a wedding exactly the way they wanted when they got to impose their tastes on their own daughter. Of course, the recent switch has created a cursed generation. They had their own wedding spoilt by the generation above, but largely aren't allowed to ruin those of the generation below. Still, they're basically the same guys who stiffed us on pension, so sod them. The beauty of the old system, though, is that no one judged the couple for the wedding. It was understood that the blame for it rested with the bride's mother's terrible taste and her father's short arms and long pockets. It said nothing about the couple themselves or about how unique and special either their day or their relationship was. Indeed,
I have a take on this.
they were expected to clear off from the reception as soon as possible, allowing the guests to do so also. Whereas now, having paid through the nose for a huge party with all their friends, and having long since exhausted the novelty of sex with one another, they tend to hang on till the bitter end, and do their best to make sure you do too. I suppose what I'm saying is this. In the very old days, you used to be told whom you had to marry, and that was a bad thing. Now, you not only get to decide that for yourself, but you also get to pick your own do, and that's also bad. I won't say worse, but I will
Like hairdo?
think it. Also get to pick your own do, and that's also bad. I won't say worse, but I will think it quite loudly. You ought to have free rein to pick your partner, but the do should be entirely out of your hands. Which is, of course, still, as it has always been, the case for almost all grooms. The power
The do? Like the money?
of do organising has simply passed from their parents-in-law to their fiancé, not for a moment settling upon them in its flight.
Here's my take on weddings, all right? And you're going to call me probably cheap, all right? But even if I had all the money in the world and I can make any wedding I wanted, right? I think the more of a demand by one of the partners to have a hugely extravagant wedding seems to be less about showing your love that both of you love each other and more about impressing everyone you invite. In my opinion, the smaller the wedding, the more it is about you two loving each other and getting married, and not about all this other crap. And I'm pulling this completely out of my arse, I have no idea. I would think the people with the more minimal weddings probably have a better chance of staying together than the ones with the $1 million weddings. You get what I mean? Like, if I were to get married, and instead of being excited and caring about the fact that you're joining a union, you're going to spend the rest of your life together, that instead the bride or groom is more focused on just the extravagancy of the wedding for a memorable experience, I think that's bullcrap. You really love each other, you want to get married, how extravagant the wedding is shouldn't matter. Honestly, if it was up to me, I'd run away with my bride to like a beach, have like my parents and their parents as witnesses, a priest, easy done, and then go get on into being a married couple, right? Is that a crazy thought? Am I insane? Is there one more Soapbox? Television credits. We'll do one more. We'll do this one. It's not so related.
Had a brilliant time. Tallinn's great.
Oh, paintball.
It seems odd that we all now accept without question that credits on TV are scrunched into a tiny box and talked over by a continuity announcer, even though that's something that absolutely no one, apart from the people who pay the announcer, actually wants to happen. Surely,
Preach.
if the people who make Mars bars started making the last mouthful taste like shit in order to encourage us to buy another Mars bar to take the taste away, people would pretty quickly go A, crazy, and B, off Mars bars, no matter how sound the financial reasoning behind the decision. But when the people whose job it is to show TV programs start doing that pointedly more shitly than they need, we just shrug and take it as punishment for some terrible deed we doubtless committed in the past and have now forgotten. And we're right to think that, because it only happens because some sort of research has persuaded the broadcaster that it makes us more likely to watch the next show and less likely to change channel or, horror of horrors, turn off the telly and get on with it.
They thinking that putting giant credits at the end will make people stay.
Our lives. I don't know if that's true. Change channel or, horror of horrors, turn off the telly and get on with our lives. I don't know if that's true, but some of us, either by our viewing behavior or our answers to questions in focus groups, focus groups, do you like being given more choice? Yes, I think I like being given more choice, have given the broadcasters that impression. That is the great sin for which our punishment is having the matiness of local radio crash in on the end of The Nazis A Warning from History to tell us that mass murder season continues next with a look at Stalin's wackiest purges. Alright, obviously this isn't a big deal, but it is a small deal. Credits are there out of respect for the people who made the programme, and I think viewers quite like them. It's nice to be able to find out that that guy playing that guy was, as you suspected, the same guy that plays that other guy in that thing, only older now and doing a different voice because aren't actors clever? And sometimes there are jokes in the credits, or nice music, or simply a pleasant lull in which to ease yourself out of the story you've just been told. All of which are ruined by being shrunk into a tiny corner of the screen while an excited voice informs you that further programs are scheduled. It's not just this one, we do loads, all in a row, one after another. There's been this one, but soon there'll be another one. Isn't it great? And now that it's accepted that the credits aren't the program's time or the viewer's thinking time anymore, but are a billboard that must be filled, continuity announcers now crash in at the end of a show even when there's nothing on next. This happened to me the other day when I was watching something that my TV recording machine had taped, or rather disked, in the middle of the night on a repeats channel, just before it gave up repeating things and started to pretend to be shopping for a few hours. It was an old episode of Inspector Morse, because that is the sort of rock and roll lifestyle I lead. Live slow, die eventually, leave an indifferently attractive corpse. That's my motto. But if you're going to leave it anywhere, leave it in an ornamental fish pond in St. Matthew's College and make a grumpy man in a jag work out why. Anyway, I like Inspector Morse. It's well-paced and it tends to end after a couple of hours on a melancholy note, generally with Morse wandering off all drunk and alone, then the beep 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 starts, and the inevitable voice pops up trying to sell me stuff. But specifically, on this occasion, trying to sell me the Inspector Morse box set. This is crazy, surely. The people that particular advert really needs to appeal to are people who really like Inspector Morse. And granted, the end of an Inspector Morse rerun is a happy hunting ground for such people. But one thing people who like Inspector Morse will hate is people who talk over the end of Inspector Morse. Do they think Inspector Morse watchers are only interested until the case is solved? That once they've internalized the important fact of who killed who in this particular episode of Morse, they will, unless immediately buttonholed, want to leap out of their chair, all eager to get on with the next important item on their packed agenda? Well, we don't. We want to sit there through the credits, listening to the nice music, enjoying feeling a bit pretend miserable, and noting that it was Michael Aldridge playing the bursar, just like we thought. And if you let us do that for a bit, you're much more likely to find us in a mood to buy a box set of the program we like than if you talk over it, telling
I do like a nice soundtrack.
us to buy it. Unless that's the point, of course. Is it actually extortion? Are they saying, annoyed by me saying this over the end of that show you like? Well, if you buy your own copy, I won't be able to. Unless you live with me, and that's not very likely, because how is someone who's prepared to talk over the end of Morse ever going to find a partner? So buy it and stop having to listen to me. Give me money, and I'll go.
I want to know how many more of these there are. I love David Mitchell, and I love the not so serious things that he's seriously upset about. And I gotta admit, pet peeves of mine is too. All right, I wanted to check it out, guys. Sorry if I paused a little there. I was asked to watch one of these. I watched 3. Love y'all. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. If you can understand something like who Inspector Morse is and explain it to me, that'd be great. I also love to hear your thoughts. Answering any questions I had. You guys are always awesome. See you guys next time. Keep on watching together. Bye, guys.